Okay, hello everyone. Well, hello no one. No one's signed on yet. I'm just going to add Enchante. All right. Hey Pete, it's just you and me, mate. Oh no, Lynn. Hey. So I'm just waiting for Enchante to join, all the way from Hawaii. Something's happened on the screen. Is it going to work?
Sorry.
Hello.
Okay, hello? Hi. Can you? Okay.
Your camera's facing the wrong way. Yay, there she is.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. You look awesome considering the jet lag you've just told me about.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it heavy?
Yeah. Yeah, just getting used to being back in this time zone because Hawaii's on the other side of the world from where I
Yeah,
just was. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so you've just been in Cyprus and
Yeah.
then literally, what, like yesterday you flew back to Hawaii or 2 days ago?
Well, I flew back on the 7th, so I left Cyprus on the 7th, but it took about 2 days to get here. So I've been home for a few days.
Cool.
But yeah, still just adjusting.
Yeah, all right. Well, I guess like everyone knows who you are, but just for the purpose of the video, for people watching on YouTube maybe later on, this is Enchante Gallardo. Did I do that right?
Yeah, I guess in Spanish it would be Gallardo, but
Gallardo.
in the States people say Gallardo.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
And in the description, I said lots of lovely things about you. I said you're crazy deep athlete, one of the deepest women in the world, and a mother, and all of these things are like really interesting to hear about. So that's my little introduction for Enchante. Yeah. Okay. I think we should just fire in to some of these questions. The sheet I've just gone and lost. Bear with me. I will pull that up. All right, cool. So we've got loads of questions sent in. Some of them are technical, some of them are
Okay.
EQ, some of them are not. People just want to know about you and your diving, and maybe a little bit about me as well.
All right.
All right. So look, this is quite interesting to start with. This is quite relevant. Somebody on Instagram called Jingster is asking about if you have a mindset coach, because this is a funny one, because I was contacted by a guy called John who's doing a PhD
Okay.
on psychology, and he asked
Hmm.
me about freediving. And we all say that this is a mental sport, but how many of us actually use mental coaches and sports psychology? So do you do anything like that?
Yeah, so I would say that I never really had a coach for most of the time I was freediving. I just recently started with a mindset coach back in July during VB. And like you said, I think the mental aspect is a huge part of not just freediving, but any sport in
Mm.
general. I would say, because it's like there's the physical aspect. So once you know what your physical body is capable of, I mean, the rest is definitely mental.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. That's an important aspect, and I think sometimes it can often get overlooked, and people focus on the physical or physiological part of it. So
Yeah. I mean, I find both bits equally as fascinating. There's obviously the physical expression of the
Mhm.
body, and like I'm just going into a base training period now, and I love base training. I get to go running. I get
Yeah.
to go to the gym a lot, and I really love that. And then yeah, when you're powering up, for me with the powering up with the monofin, it's just the best thing in the world.
Mhm.
But I learned quite early on that. But my body could handle more or less what I was asking it to do, and it was this that was getting in the way, and that became really interesting. Does your sports coach like have a name? I mean, are they specific to freediving, or are they just a general sports therapist? Or
No, they're not. They're not even, I wouldn't say a sports
Mm.
therapist. They're just a generalized mindset coach,
Okay.
not just for athletes, but for people in general.
Right.
They do work with some athletes, but I mean, it could be applied to any aspect of your life.
Okay. So
Um,
like a performance coach.
yeah, yeah,
Wicked. All right. I might have to get that number off you.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
His name is Peter Shaw.
Oh,
So
sure. Shout out to Pete. All right. Cool.
uh,
Yeah, because it's like it's an example I use for a lot of sort of intermediate people who come to me. Um, I kind of I think most people walking down the street with a basic level of fitness can be doing like 60, 70 meter dives because it's not that physically demanding as long as your technique's not causing you to burn oxygen and stuff. Like a 60-meter dive is not a very long time, is it? But
no, no, and I
it's
think
just
like you said, a lot of people have the physical capacity to do, for example, a 60-meter dive.
mm,
Uh, I think a lot of it is mental, and it's like even towards the end of this season, before I came home, um, doing the last dives I did, I felt that I was physically in shape and I was definitely capable of doing the dives, but it takes a lot to mentally sustain that motivation and that drive to keep
yeah.
diving, especially like if you have a really long season. And I think, taking care of that mental aspect is just as important as taking care of the physical. It's definitely finding the right
Yeah,
balance.
yeah, absolutely. Because you do have long seasons, don't you? Like, I remember last year and this year,
Yeah.
you did like two world championships, and then a couple of smaller ones in between.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
yeah,
Well, yeah, I think last year and even this year in VB, I kind of realized the importance of taking care of that physical aspect, because I last year was the first year I really kind of experienced burnout. Like when I went to Cash, I after oh, it was Roatan, because I did VB World Championships in Roatan, and when I got to Cash, I was mentally exhausted and I didn't want to dive. I didn't want to compete. I was like, oh, I really just want to go home.
yeah.
But I was there and I did it and I went through the motions and I did the dives. But I took a week break after that, not diving, not thinking about depth at all. And then I went to Sharm, and after even taking a week break of from diving, I actually found the joy in diving again and I was starting to enjoy the dives.
Awesome.
So I think giving yourself that break in between, especially competitions, because it does take a lot of mental stress and a lot of mental energy. Yeah, it's important to have that and to find the joy in what you're doing, because this is something that, a lot of people, they start freediving because it's something that they love, but I think they a lot of the times you go full force into it, and then it becomes work and it becomes hard, and then people kind of lose why that original idea of why they started doing it in the first place.
Yeah,
But yeah, even now I'm so excited, and I've been looking forward to the off season to go back to, like you said, running, going to the gym, working out, and not feeling bad about about working too hard because I have to dive.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. There's some awesome points there. I have a very small sort of mental focus window when I'm doing deep dives. If
mhm.
I'm going to within 5-10% of my PBs, over 100 and stuff, it's like my focus window is really
Yeah,
small. I've probably like literally eight dives or something like that, and
yeah,
then I'm just like, I need to take a step back and have a break, at least for a few days.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's something recovery. It might sort of not quite be strictly mental, but recovery is something I put a lot of effort into learning about in the last couple of years. Just
yeah.
nervous system rest. Have you ever properly overtrained, like really overtrained?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think a
Yeah,
little bit last year, but I really discovered that this year right before VB. And again, like you, recovery is something that I'm still discovering because I'm the type of person that kind of likes to push themselves and push their
yeah,
bodies to the point where your body literally says no.
yeah, yeah,
And a lot of people have been like, okay, you need to slow down, you need to rest. And I really realized that this year when I had my first blackout, and I really think that I was overtrained right before the competition start. I didn't give myself enough rest. So I think that's why part of the reason why that happened, because I
yeah,
think the dive was within my capabilities because it's something that I had done, but a couple times in training. So yeah, again, like yeah, it puts a lot of stress on the central nervous system, and I didn't really realize that. And diving consistently to those depths was new territory for me. So
yeah,
I think
yeah.
once
Did
you
you
start
find
getting
the
close to,
consistency of it like compounded?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you kind of always trying to play
absolutely,
catch up with the recovery.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Did
and
you find
that's
it
something that I
difficult?
what?
Sorry. Go on. There was a delay.
No, I was saying that's something that I definitely, a huge lesson I learned this past year and this past season that I'm definitely going to carry over into next season and be more mindful and thoughtful of my training, um, resting and recovering, because resting and recovery is part of training as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, how did you find that blackout for you? Because it's nice, it's lovely to have one of those clean sheets and be one of those perfect divers who can say I've never had a blackout. But it's an inevitable cause sometimes. It
Yeah.
doesn't always happen because you're doing something reckless or silly. We are holding our breath and trying to swim for as long as possible. How did you find having it and recovering from it, getting back on the horse?
I think it was something that was a little hard for me to process in the beginning. Then the funny thing was that even the week before, when I had first hit 100 meters in training, I was really priding myself on the fact that I made it that far in my freediving career without ever having or experiencing a blackout.
Yeah, awesome.
And I was like, yeah. And then the following week in competition, then I had this, not just a surface blackout, but an underwater blackout. So it, it was my first blackout, so that was something that was interesting for me to process, and it definitely took some time, and I would say that I went through it was almost like a grieving period for me, because you go to that point where you're just like really sad, and
Yeah,
like you feel like you experienced a loss. Then I was like angry at myself. I was like, okay, maybe I should have been more conservative with my announcement. and then I finally went through the process, okay, of acceptance. This is what happened, and how do I move forward,
yeah,
and what are the next steps that I need to take in terms of my dives and what I want to accomplish. Also, still in the middle of a competition, so it's I have to keep going, and it's not something I can hold on. What can I learn from this experience?
yeah.
But it was definitely
That's
that.
wonderful. Because initially the emotional side hits you, and it's
Oh,
just like you're
absolutely.
disappointed,
Yeah.
and you're tiny. There was a tiny bit of embarrassment there as well. Also I'm a coach, so I'm coaching people, and like back in August, I had a pretty tough competition in Sharm, and I made some not great decisions. I ended up with a 12-meter blackout.
Okay,
And
wow.
I've never had a deep underwater blackout.
Is that your
I've had a couple of surface
okay.
ones, but nothing for 10 years. And I ended up with I traveled to London and back in 48 hours, and then I decided to go full on for this deep dive. and it didn't work. So
Yeah.
there's, you know, there was a little bit of embarrassment there. But then, like you say, a couple of days of the emotional side, and then the pragmatic side sets in, and we start to think, okay, why did that happen? What can I do to avoid it again? And I think blackouts can be a really powerful learning experience, as long as, you know, as long as they're not happening because you're doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
if it's happening again and again, nah, trouble.
Well, that's the thing is like figuring out what caused it and what happened. I think, you know, it's different for everybody, and the experience is so subjective, and figuring out, okay, why did this happen and how do I prevent it from happening again? And sometimes you don't always know, especially if it's something that you've never experienced.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I did a dive 2 days later and I had another blackout. It was on the, like, right on the surface, but it was a dive that I knew that I could do. And so that was also confusing as well, because I didn't know how to, there was a moment where I didn't really know how to move forward, because I didn't know how my body was going to respond after having that blackout. So
yeah, because there is a sort of working theory that the body does develop a memory, in a sense. You know, it knows that it was in a stressful situation, low on oxygen, deep underwater, and you have that first blackout, and the next time you're in that situation, there's a theory that the body remembers, okay, last time I blacked Enchante out and we're fine, we're still alive.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to happen after 2 blackouts, but you know, if you're repeatedly having a blackout, I think seems to be, this is all anecdotal, but it seems to be there's a tendency for your body to put you into blackout. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of blackouts, I mean, this is still something new for me, and you know, I've spoken with a lot of people who've experienced it, but for me, I think that it takes, and maybe for other people as well, that it takes time, that you need to have kind of like a grace period so that your body can rest, recover, and then kind of like reset itself, so it's something that doesn't keep happening.
Yeah. So you had the blackout.
Yeah.
Sorry, you had the blackout. You waited a couple of days, then went again and had another little wobble.
I actually waited 1 day. 1 day. And after that, I waited, because you know how it is in VB. Your dives are you have a schedule.
Yeah.
So that was the first session, and I thought 1 day was gonna be okay.
But and then did you do anything else specifically to help you recover other than taking time off?
Just taking time off, resting, trying to eat well.
Yeah, which is expensive on Long Island.
Yeah.
I came with 15 kilos of food last year, like tons of the stuff. Yeah. I brought everything. I was really, yeah.
You gotta put a good.
We literally filled 20 minutes with that one question. So Jingster, I hope we started off talking about mindset, and then we ended up on food.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Jingster, I hope that answers your question. Okay. Another one from Vidar. Yeah, I haven't seen Vidar since last year. This is a little bit of a training technical question rather than EQ or anything. He's asking about training for no contractions. Is this something that is important for you in your diving, to have like beautiful free falls free of contractions?
I don't train for no contractions.
Okay.
I have to admit that I don't really do tables.
Yeah.
Like,
do I.
I do have contractions on my descent.
And does that play tricks with your EQ?
Not usually. I mean, my EQ is definitely still not perfect. I think that I could definitely work on relaxation a little more.
Yeah.
But contractions don't typically affect. I don't find that they affect my dives too much.
Okay.
I just kind of accept that I have contractions on the way down, and I think I always have them, so I've gotten used to it.
Yeah. That's wonderful. If you can get your glottis used to sort of, you know, doing its job and holding that air up there, then that's wonderful. But yeah, I mean, I don't. I suppose I'm a bit unique. I don't do tables or anything like that. But that's mainly like I love the pool. The first like 5, 6, 7 years of my freediving, I was living in London, so I was in the pool 2 or 3 days a week, doing freediving training, and I was a swimmer years ago, so I really enjoy the pool. But I'm living in Dahab, and there's just not access to decent pools. If I had a 50-minute
pool in Dahab, there's a couple.
Like there's two, but one of them I don't want to go in because the filtration system's not great, and the other one, like summertime it's too hot, wintertime it's too cold. So it's like, you know, if I had an Olympic pool next door, I'd be swimming all the time. But I don't. So I'm quite lucky in my work. Essentially, I'm doing CO2 tables all day. I'm diving with students all day. I'm diving down to 20, 30 meters, or even more, and then come up, breathe for a couple of minutes, then next student. So I'm kind of doing tables like that. So
CO2 training without purposely doing them.
Yeah, and it's a nice side effect.
You can also practice keeping your glottis closed, and for example, like maintaining your mouth fill dry, like doing RVs on land. You know, maybe taking a mouth fill and just holding your breath until you get a couple contractions to.
Yeah, this is a nice way to get the glottis woken up. But I think Vidar's kind of looking more for how to stop the contractions. I mean, there's
stop. Yeah.
Okay, there's an obvious shortcut, which is almost like a dirty word.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, it begins with H. You know, now look, I think if you've done,
shall not be named.
Yeah, so it's the big bad H, hyperventilation. So if you've done everything you can, you've got a good fitness level, your EQ technique's on point. Your technique in general is on point, and you're still having problems, you've done everything else you can. Hyperventilation can definitely be a tool. Now, personally, I overbreathe for my diving. I don't know, do you have any specific breathe up? Do you overbreathe slightly?
Not typically. I think I kind of started experimenting very slightly with it this past year, and maybe 1 or 2, but not anything. That's something I think you want to be mindful of when you're doing that, because there's a very fine line you know, you could open too much.
Yeah, so I'm not, you know, while I'm very careful not to completely advocate hyperventilation, I'd certainly be very, very careful for dynamic disciplines in the pool, because it will trick you into thinking you can swim forever, and you definitely can't. But for depth, where the meters are set, you know, you're not going to get to 60 and think, oh, I feel great, let's go to 80. So I think it can be a useful tool to maybe just take the edge off of the contractions. But then, you know, there's a lot that can be done with the breathe up and the way you dive first before taking a shortcut. But yeah, it needs to be sort of experimented with very slowly, very carefully. Yeah. And there's some nice like pool stuff that Vidar could do. Literally just swimming gently into discomfort and kind of stopping. But I think Vidar's been diving for quite a while, so I think for someone a bit newer to free diving, like little dynamic pool sessions where you swim until you feel 1 or 2 light contractions and then stopping, fully recovering, and then swimming again and seeing if you could gently extend the time without contractions. That sort of thing will definitely help a new beginner increase quite a lot. But then once they've found their sort of upper limit, contractions are a fact of life. Someone just said on the chat, embrace them and become one with the contractions.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's ultimately what you learn is you embrace the contractions, you accept that this is a part of it, especially with deep diving.
Yeah, yeah, but it plays havoc with some people. Some people, you know, they can't hold their glottis, and it just
Yeah.
don't sucks the air straight out their mouth, ruins
I
their
mean,
IQ.
yeah, again, like you said, you can definitely train it so the contractions don't come as early, but I think there I think I've spoken to one or two people who said that they don't ever get contractions. I'm like, how?
Yeah. Yeah, how? I saw actually yesterday, was it yesterday? I was diving in Blue Hole and
Okay.
Gus was on the buoy next to me and he's just started his own training for the first time in years actually. And I think he did a 71 free immersion dive. He had one contraction.
Are you serious? It must
I
have been
saw
really
him and he just looked blissed out like he was
Yeah.
high and I was like, what the hell's up with you? And he was like, oh, dude, I just did this amazing dive, one contraction. And I was like, good on you. Well done. Yeah. Shout out to Gus.
It is possible.
Yeah, it is possible. Yeah. All right, Vidar. Hopefully I'll see you soon, mate. Hopefully that helps you with your question.
Maybe not.
Okay. I got a question from Ilyas. Ilyas is the future Egyptian record holder. He's 15 and he's quite gifted. No, actually, don't listen to that, Ilyas. You're not gifted. You've got to work hard. Anyway, he's diving seriously deep, and he's only 15. So once he hits 18 and hits the competition scene,
Wow.
yeah, watch out. So he's asking, maybe this is directed at me, but he's asking, when did narcosis become a problem, and what depth? Like, is narcosis a problem for you?
I don't normally have issues with narcosis. It's not something I experience. I know some people who experience it on every single dive. But one of my last dives that I did in World Championships, I did experience quite a bit of narcosis. The loop-de-loop dive. And
Yeah, the loop-de-loop dive. Just in case anyone doesn't know, what depth was that? It was like 70.
no, was it like past 90?
Really?
It was right before the credit. Yeah, it was really deep.
Okay, so Enchante going down, and for some reason, in the middle of the dive, she just does a full forward roll, and then carries on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Epic.
Well,
Well done.
the thing was I was really narked on that dive, and I knew I had done something weird at the bottom, but I don't remember doing a full forward somersault. And I just,
You
I
definitely did.
don't remember everything about the ascent either. It felt like the ascent was really fast, and then
Yeah.
I saw the safety.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is classic
Yeah.
narcosis. Yeah. But I don't know. I've never heard of anyone doing a somersault. I've never heard of it. It's amazing. But it's very elegant. It's very beautiful to watch. Yeah, for me, narcosis, it was only when I started to do consistent dives over 100.
Mm-hmm.
Like 104, 105, I'd have narcosis, but it never bothered me. It never bothered me in the sense, like, I let it bother me at first. I was like, shit, I'm getting knocked.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought, actually, it's not making me do somersaults. It's not making me mess up my dives. So just, like, learn to live with it. And I kind of did. But then in Cyprus last month, I was having it stronger. I think because the water's colder.
Do you think the cold water, like the water temperature, has an impact on the severity of narcosis?
Yeah, potentially. I remember I spoke to Andrea Zakari a fair bit about it, and he was like, yeah, cold water will, because it affects circulation a little bit. And also, I think for me, cold water sort of internalizes me a bit more. I find it quite easy to dive in cold water. I didn't when I first went to Cyprus. It took me 3 or 4 dives. But yeah, maybe that because I thought the darkness at VB would really affect me, but it didn't. I was expecting very strong narcosis, but it wasn't that bad. And this time in Cyprus was far worse, and it was actually making me, yeah, like you say, big memory blanks. I don't remember. It was my bifins dive, 100-meter bifins, when I came up and just went like this. It was just like, relax. I don't remember any of that. I don't remember meeting safeties at 40.
So you don't remember the surface protocol?
No, I remember just after it, and you know the way when you know you're getting a red card because everyone's looking at you in a certain way, and I was like, oh, okay, I did something wrong, but I don't know what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you don't remember.
Yeah, and then you've got that awkward 30-second wait. Yeah, you've got that awkward wait until you get the red card, but yeah. Yeah, so narcosis, yeah, I've heard people get it far shallower. I've heard people, you know, Guillaume Neri made that movie about what he sees, and that's insane. What he's seeing goblins and little creatures and lights and everything. And I mean, I wish I saw stuff like that. I don't. I just get memory blanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's different. It's different for everyone, and some people I've heard getting narcosis at 60, and some don't get narcosis till a lot deeper. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I don't really know how to train it. I think just more exposure to depth. I think it's a very difficult thing to train. I'm not sure anyone's got any real pathway for that.
Anything particular? Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Is people say just more deep diving. I guess getting the effective narcosis if it's something that bothers you. And another thing is, if you know that you're prone to narcosis, I think what could help is also visualization, visualizing your dive, and so that everything's super consistent. So even if you don't remember, that your body's automatically going through the correct movements.
Yeah, that's right. Because obviously, like, I might feel knocked, but I'm still swimming. I'm still moving. I'm able to grab the tag and do all that I have to do. So yeah, I guess training. The theory I've got, how I'm going to work on it, is to do repeats of like 80% of max, but to perfection. Dives that are deep to be quite challenging, but not too hard, and just get that drilled in. All those things you have to do, all drilled in, and then hopefully when I do progress deeper and get hit by narcosis, it's all there in the back running. Yeah, hopefully. That's the plan. Right. Do you want an EQ question? Because I know you love them. All right. I got a question. It's a question from Ilaria. I think it was sent in last week, but we didn't get round to it. And it's asking, like, were you an instinctive Valsalva, hands-free, friends? What were you doing on your first EQ course?
I think instinctively I was doing Frenzel. I knew how to Valsalva, but my instructor told me that I was Frenzeling. So I think that was just something. But I definitely do not know how to hands-free. Never trained it. Never took the time to. I'm hoping to one day actually set some time aside to at least attempt to learn it. I think it could be beneficial in some other aspects of freediving. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hands-free would be very useful, definitely. I think a lot of people have got capacity to learn it, but I think one massive advantage is if you have wide open tubes. Do you ever use the Uber tool to measure your pressure? No.
I think I did with David Meller when I was in the Philippines, and I was trying to adjust it to my nose, and I was having trouble finding the right spot to put it to measure it. But yeah, I think I've tried it like once or twice.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in learning hands-free and they plug into this Uber tool that connects to an app on your phone, if anyone equalizing like less than 20 or 15, that shows you've got nice open tubes, so you have potential to learn hands-free. Doesn't mean people who need more pressure can't learn it, but it's definitely easier if you can if you've got nice big tubes. And then it comes down to soft palate control, really. There's muscles behind the soft palate that are connected to the eustachian tube, and you've got to kind of learn how to do that. But it's a bit of a mystery. But like anything, all these muscles, they can be trained. We can train our body to do anything. You look at jugglers, sleight of hand magicians, it's all just muscles. Yeah, so one day, maybe hands-free. Are you, there's sort of a second part to Ilaria's question. Are you using constant pressure when you mouth feel, or are you sequential, or?
I use sequential frenzel, mouth fill, and then sequential frenzel. I haven't really used constant pressure. I think, well, one of the reasons why I haven't really used constant pressure is because I'm one of those lucky people who has a leaky tear duct. So there's a significant amount of bubbles that come out of my eye if
Oh, wow.
I put pressure. And I think with constant pressure, you have to find that right amount of pressure to keep and maintain, so that bubbles don't consistently leak out of the eye. And I just found, for me, sequential to be a lot easier in managing that.
Yeah, and so the leaky tear duct, it must have forced you to be quite tactile with the amount of pressure you give, because sequential, you can go full pressure and then stop, full pressure.
Yeah.
But if you give too much, it's going to come out. Yeah.
And it does happen. There's times where I'll equalize and a little bit of bubbles will come out.
Wow.
It helps if I have my eye closed, because it will put some pressure on the duct so it doesn't leak out of my eye. But occasionally, even then, a few tiny bubbles will come out. And again, like, you know, sometimes using the goggles can help. So because it puts more pressure on the eye and on the tear duct, so it doesn't leak out as easy.
Okay, you dive with fluids, yeah?
I do sometimes.
Okay.
I did in Cyprus because of the thermocline, and then also I wear contacts. So especially with the monofin or bifins, if I ascend too fast, then and my eyes are open, then I've experienced it where my contacts come out. So it helps to also keep my contacts in.
Yeah. That's really interesting about the tear duct. I'm coaching somebody at the moment who has the same thing, leaky tear duct, and she has to fully scrunch her face to stop air. And then on the way up, I can see it pouring out. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's quite a lot of air. Like, even if I did it now, you can hear it, and then you can definitely, if I'm congested, it's even worse, because
I get it when I'm congested, if I have a head cold. Yeah. But I think that's got crossover. Not everyone's got a leaky tear duct, but everyone can sort of equalize in your way, perhaps. You know, it forces you to equalize very sensitively and very gently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want to put too much pressure, otherwise you're losing air.
Yeah, exactly, and that's something that we can all learn, because I guarantee like 90% of people listening to this are equalizing too forcefully, for sure. Everyone does, especially in the beginning. Yeah, it's one of the drills. I was going through that with two of my students today, actually, just getting them to go hand over hand, giving as little pressure as they need, and it's a lovely way to. Just enough to keep the tubes open and give them a little bit more if they need. Yeah. Cool. Do your contractions not bother you in CNF? Does that not generate a lot of CO2? Mess up your EQ?
It does, actually. I don't usually have issues equalizing with CNF, and I just started training more CNF this year. Before, it was more sporadic. I think diving deeper in other depths, and going through the EQ journey in other disciplines helped to feel a little more comfortable on the descent with CNF. Like, I do get contractions, and sometimes I kind of accept that, you know, that I have contractions on the descent, uh, but it typically doesn't affect my equalization.
Cool.
For the discipline.
Well, that's good. I'd say you're quite lucky with that, because CNF is really challenging to equalise with. Yeah, nice one. Okay, right. I have a promise that I was supposed to ask this question because it was sent in weeks ago and I keep forgetting.
Okay.
So this is for Tam. I know she's listening. Tam is sort of asking about what would be a logical progression to depth regarding EQ, and I think it's quite a large topic. Like, maybe if we sort of talk about what was your progression to depth, because obviously you said you started your first course and you were Frenzel. Did you struggle with Frenzel at certain depths?
So I feel like it's been such a long time that it's kind of hard to remember exactly where was the point that I was struggling with Frenzel, because there were definitely a few depths where I encountered equalization issues and was really frustrated. I remember even my first VB experience, I was running into equalization issues. I think there was like also a small like thermocline there, and so I was swallowing it around 50.
Thermocline in Dean's Blue Hole, what, like a 1 degree thermocline?
Yeah,
After
well,
I'm we just swam in last week in Cyprus.
Yeah, that was my thermocline challenge in the beginning. That was actually, it took a week to adjust to that thermocline, even though it was 1 or 2 degrees, and I kept swallowing consistently, maybe around 50 or even before that, or maybe even at 40, because I was turning at like 50 or 55. And I was having trouble maintaining and keeping air in my mouth. And I mean,
all right. Well, did you get into, like, I remember I got into trouble with EQ around 35 to 40.
Okay.
You know, it's that, and I see it all the time in students.
I think between like 40 and 50, or 35 to 50, I notice a lot of people encountering that struggle with equalization. You know.
Yeah, and sort of the main reason for that is, you know, people are they're going past their residual volume. So you can Frenzel. I mean, you can Frenzel at 200 meters if you have access to air. And the problem is, as you go past residual, you don't have easy access to air from down in the lungs anymore. So whatever air shift technique you were using gets harder. You know, reverse packing can be wonderful. I think there's a few misconceptions about reverse packing. Someone said to me today, "Oh, it's very dangerous." I'm like, no, it's dangerous if it's done badly, like any movement. But if you're properly relaxed and you're able to reverse pack, no problem. You reverse pack, keep frenzeling with that. The problem is at 40, 45, it's harder to reverse pack for most people because they don't know, they don't have any skill with that, you know, and they're just doing something. And the habit people get into is if something's difficult, what do? We push harder. That's in a lot of our nature, and you do that at 45, trying to reverse pack, trachea squeeze straight away. Yeah, so it's quite a key point. When did you start learning mouthfeel? When did you realize you wanted to switch or had to switch?
So I think it was around my level 2 course when I learned how to reverse pack, Frenzel, then just starting to learn how to mouth fill and manage that. Yeah, it took a little bit of time to get used to the fill.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah,
That's
because it
a common sorry, that's a common progression, I think. This is how I like to work with people. They come to me. First of all, I improve their frenzel by teaching them how to reverse pack, and then perhaps bringing in some theory about charging in different ways, and then we increase their frenzel a little bit. But to be honest, once you're getting into 30s, 40s, into 45s, 50s, it's time for mouthfeel. We might as well make the switch. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, like you said, past like 35, 30s to 50s, it's good to start making that switch to mouthfeel in order to be able to progress. And because it takes, you know, time, it takes experience in the water and getting used to how to take a mouthfeel and take a proper mouthfeel to take you to the depths that you want to go to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like I don't know. I think if maybe Tam's looking for some more practical sort of examples, but you know, once you've got good tongue control and your frenzel's solid and you can access air deep, then you start with classic mouthfeel drills. I mean, she actually knows this because it's what I've been doing with her for the last week. You know, like taking a surface fill, taking it down, and then once you've got that consistent and you've extended that as deep as you go, then people can start taking a 5 meter fill, taking it down, and then a 10 meter fill, taking it down. One very good tip which I would give people would be, don't forget to train the bottom end of the mouthfeel. Because if you only ever train full mouthfeel, you've got to go really deep to get into that point where you're transitioning into the tongue and going through the locks. So if you train with a 50% mouthfeel from the surface, you'll be hitting that that tongue frenzel part of the equalisation much shallower, and you can do it more often.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, like you said, it's good to train, you know, managing when you're just have a little bit of air left. And because that's, I I still struggle with that to this day. Even, you know, when I have that little bit of air left, managing that at the very bottom to get the last few equalizations. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes I'm struggling. I mean, I've seen some of my dives lately, even in the past couple of months, and it's you know, I can see the struggle, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That looks rough. But I think a lot of that also comes down to relaxation, and like you said, you can practice that, you know, taking mouthfills from the surface or from 5 meters, so that so that you don't have to do really deep dives in order to practice managing the air.
Yeah.
And that's something that I even want to go back to for next season when I get back into the water is you know, rediscovering that and
Yeah, well, that's what I start off doing when I start off with my own personal training time.
yeah.
Then I start off with doing some mouthfeel drills, just reminding myself how to EQ. And the first part, how to charge properly. There's a lot that can be done on charging, on good ways to bring up air rather than causing too much stress. And then, yeah, reminding myself of the bottom end of the mouthfeel. So it's like I teach myself how to EQ again, and then I start going deep. And in a perfect world, you know, the dive ends because the rope is finished, not because your EQ's finished. You know, you know, in a perfect world, we're ending at that stopper, grabbing the tag, and we've still got a little ball of air where we could go another 10, 15 meters. You know,
That's
in a
the
perfect
idea.
world.
Yeah, and that's the ideal dive, is you want to arrive to your destination feeling like you could go so many meters, more meters.
Yeah, it does wonderful things for confidence as well, because there's one thing getting a PB where you've got a mouthful of air at the bottom, and it's a little bit different getting a PB where you're just almost empty, you know.
Barely taking it.
Yeah. Actually, I just realised, you know, we talked about tear ducts. Zippy, Christine Zipful, she sent in a question about tear ducts. So hopefully we've answered her question about how to deal with tear ducts.
Yeah, I saw that from previous weeks.
I think, Tam, I think your question, I'm going to ask that next week as well, because I think that's a massive umbrella term question, so that we could talk for ages on that, all right, let's pick something else. Actually, I've got a list of like just random nice questions that we can sort of finish up with. What does your daily routine look like? I mean, I guess today you've been sleeping because you're jet lagged.
Yeah.
So let's say you're training, you're in a period, you've done your base training and you're in a depth training period. What would your day look like?
Okay.
EQ drills, yeah.
EQ all day, every day. I should start incorporating more EQ drills in my training. And that's actually something I think I plan to incorporate more for next season, to feel more confident with EQ.
Yeah.
I would say waking up is the first step. I usually, if I'm doing a depth training session, I like to wake up, make some tea, like ginger or turmeric, lemon tea, and I do a bit of stretching, light yoga, like a very short yoga. I don't have the attention span for doing super long yoga sessions, but I like to stretch and kind of get the blood flowing in my body. It helps to warm up my muscles, I feel better with the circulation.
Yeah.
And I'll do a few packing stretches, and breathing exercises, and some visualization. And then I'll go and I'll do my diving session depending on what time it is. But I also, if I'm doing deep dives, I typically like to eat something small beforehand, just to get that a little bit of energy, especially because of the physical demands for deep diving. So I typically, I'm going to be very typical here and say a bowl of oatmeal.
Yeah.
Just because it's not so heavy, and for me it's easy for the body to digest, and it gives you some of those sugars and carbohydrates that your body can break down easily. And then I'll do my deep diving session. It also depends on where I'm geographically located. And, sometimes after the dive, I really like drinking coffee. So I like, a nice cup of coffee. That's something that I look forward to after a lot of dives and lunch. And sometimes I'll go home and I'll take a nap and just kind of rest for that evening. Or sometimes I like to do something a little active just to kind of, for me, it's a way that I like to decompress, if it's like a walk or like a swim or something where my body's moving. I find that helps me with my diving and whatever helps to also, maybe I'm making this up in my head, but off gas like the nitrogen and kind of get my blood moving, or blood system.
I listened to a Huberman podcast recently about recovery, and even he says there's quite clear evidence that just headphones, soft, relaxing music starts the recovery process. It just brings the whole nervous system down. So this is what I've started doing after my gym workouts now. I'm cycling to the gym listening to metal, and I'm cycling back from the gym listening to like Rachmaninoff or Chopin or something like that. And it is relaxing. It is chilled. Okay, look, we've been chatting for ages. Let's what's next in the pipeline for you? What do you have going on?
Well, right now I'm really looking forward to the off season, and base training. I, I, being home, I think Hawaii is a really great place to be, and I'm happy to be based here because I can still dive if I need to. I don't think I'll go into any depth training or deep dives, but running, hiking,
Yeah.
strength training, I really enjoy strength training, like working with weights. Um, I have kind of like a home gym, so I don't necessarily need to go to the gym. And then also surfing. I think
Oh, cool.
I love surfing because it's still a way for me to be in the water and, maintain that like aquatic ability, using a lot of, my arms uh,
Yeah,
and
surfing must be ideal cross training to a point, especially for free immersion. Perhaps not for the fin disciplines, but you're getting a breath hold element,
yeah.
and you're getting a quite an intense sort of sprints you're doing. But when you're paddling out or catching waves, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
do you dive deep much in Hawaii?
Uh, it it depends. Sometimes, usually around the beginning of the year, maybe
Okay.
January, February, but not very often.
Is this
Maybe.
because of conditions or because of not the right people around or?
Well, a lot of the times when we go out, we'll tie up to a mooring, and the moorings are about 50 meters or 37 meters max. But those are also enjoyable because it's not, there's a lot you can do and
There's a lot, yeah.
work with, yeah, at those depths. But I do have some friends who have boats, and so now we'll do drift dives for deep diving.
Yeah,
And there is that option. I don't
yeah,
go out too often, just maybe once or twice a week, if anything. But I think right now I'm gonna stay away from deep diving and
yeah,
just really focus more on base training, gaining muscle. Just because for me, I like having muscle because I like feeling strong. And when you're in the middle of competition, I don't do as heavier workouts, so I feel
yeah,
like I
yeah.
lose during that time.
Have you thought about what your competition calendar is going to look like for next year?
I think for sure I'm looking at the two world championships,
Yeah,
and I'm I think everything else is still up in the air. I'm gonna, wait a couple months and see what competitions come up, what makes sense geographically
yeah,
and logistically, and see where I can train, where I would like to train. I think I spoke to a lot of people this year who went to Kalamata, so I think that's definitely on my radar for
yeah,
next year. And I've
yeah.
never been
I was
this.
diving there. I went there back in 2011, back in 2013 as well for those two world championships. I love Kalamata.
Yeah.
Kalamata is awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'd like to check that out next year as well. Yeah.
You think it's
Yeah.
one of
So
the
are
best?
you running any courses or workshops or anything? Can people get in the water with you? Because you should be.
I'm I'm not at the moment, but if people do want to, I haven't really advertised or planned to run any courses or anything, but I might be going to Baja here again soon
Oh, lovely.
in November for a couple weeks. So if anyone wants to do training sessions,
Cool.
that's an option there. And then I'm based on Oahu in Honolulu, so I can do training sessions here as well.
Fantastic. All right. Awesome. Okay, I think we're at a logical spot to sort of let you have your breakfast, and I'm going to bed. But yeah, I hope this call helped a lot of people with their EQ. And if anyone needs clarification on anything, drop me a message. I teach online. I teach in Dahab. In the new year, I'm going to be heading over to the Philippines for a little bit to check out Superhome and see what things are like there. So I'll be working over there. And yeah, give us a shout. I've got my website, which is on my Instagram. Have you got a website that they can find information, or is Instagram the best thing for you?
Right now, Instagram's the best.
Great. Okay. All right. So there we go. Thank you so much. That's been really fun. It's just like talking to a mate, isn't it? I mean, that's easy. Anyway, so I don't know where I'll see you next. Somewhere warm and blue. Yeah, probably.
Sure.
Maybe Corsica will be the next time we see each other.
Maybe the Philippines. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Cool. Come over to the Philippines. All right. Well, thank you for your questions, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. And thank you, Enchante. Thank you so much. All right. Bye. I'll see you soon. Bye.